Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for your support to my channel until now. And in a series of interviewing people today, I'd like to talk about American and Asian culture. And in that, I'm going to interview some Americans who have experience with Asia and Asian culture. And today, I'm very happy to have Joey with me. Joey is a student at University of Cincinnati, but she had some time in China and Japan. So I'd like to have her here to talk about American and Asian culture with us. First, thank you very much, Joey, for accepting the invitation to our program. So can you please introduce a bit about more about yourself?
Yeah. As Hung said, my name is Zoe, and I study mechanical engineering, and I have minors in astrophysics and philosophy here at UC. I'm a senior, which is a fifth year here in the engineering program. And as part of my co-ops, I spent time in Chongqing University as a teaching assistant for engineering courses, and I worked for a Japanese company called IHI to do aerospace research.
Okay. Could you please elaborate more about the time you spent in China and Japan? So like your job and then your activities and things like that.
Yeah, so my experiences in China and Japan were very different. The co-op that I had in China was my first job, um, at my first co-op job at UC, and as such, I was hired without any language experience, so I do not know Chinese. But the way they have the program set up, it's called the Joint Co-op Program. They have students at Chongqing University take 5 years, well, they take 4 years of classes and co-op in China at CQU, and their co-ops are at various Chinese companies. All their engineering courses are in English, and so they send UC TAs over there to help with the courses
For how
and
long?
professors. So each TA is over there for about a semester.
Mm.
They have professors that go over there recurringly. So some professors go every fall, some go every spring, some go every summer. Um, but in their fifth year, they come to UC and get their degree from both universities. So with that program, it was sort of a community. Like all the professors, students, and TAs kind of stuck together and knew each other. So it was really cool how you could interact with each other and hang out and just kind of forget the different levels of hierarchy there. In that way, it was not really the typical Chinese experience. But my experience in Japan was very different in that I was working for a traditional Japanese company. I did take 2 semesters of Japanese before going over there. It was the international co-op program at UC, and with German and Japanese co-ops, they have you take 2 semesters of the language before you go. So it was a little easier for me to communicate, but Japanese is still a difficult language, so
Okay.
I still have a long way to go with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure. Yeah.
but the work culture in Japan was a bit more strict. They expected overtime a lot of times, even when there's nothing to do. Fortunately, it was in my contract that I only needed to do 8-hour work days, but there was still an unwritten expectation that I stay longer.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So it seems you have spent like a significant amount of time in China and Japan. So I'd like to ask you, like, in your opinion, what do you think or what do you see the similarities and differences between American and Asian culture, let's say, though you spent in China and Japan, right? So
Yeah.
let's say Asian culture.
Yeah. So, first of all, um, Japanese culture versus American culture, like actually both, I would say both China and Chinese and Japanese culture, um, they both really highly value work. And even though Americans also value the work-life balance. And in China and Japan, that's not so much the case. At least from my experience, even with just working with the students in China, I saw that they were very um, school oriented, very work oriented, and even even though they were the ones in the program were very friendly to me, that would always be their main focus. And in Japan, it was very similar. The way I normally explain it to people is that in Japan, work comes first, your family comes second, yourself comes third, and then everything else is optional.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. And then you used to tell me about like the CV in Japan. People used to like stick the picture in the CV. Is it
Yeah.
happening in America as well?
Yeah, not so much really. In America, people really value the first in-person impression more.
Mm-hmm.
But in Japan, the CV that I had to send in had a picture on top, so they knew what you looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very strange that they wanted the first impression before there was even an interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about like other things like food or like time? I mean, like going to an appointment or a day, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So normally in the U.S., people are like often a few minutes late, and that's okay as long as you're not more than 15 minutes late, because then that's a little bit disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
But in China and Japan more, I saw more of a stress of this in Japan, but you are definitely supposed to be early for things, even significantly early, rather than late. Like if you're being late or if you don't inform someone of that especially, that's very disrespectful. And sometimes if people are late, that's a signal to the other person that they don't really want to do this or be here. So it kind of is used as an indirect signal if you're late, but in the U.S., just people run late all the time. It's not really a huge deal.
Okay, but in Japan it is.
Yes.
Oh, so let's say for me or for Asian people in general, if we like were in America, if we want to integrate with local people, like do you have any suggestions or advice for us?
Yeah. So I would say always step out of your comfort zone. I know that's used a lot, and I know that's said a lot to anyone who's traveling, but it's really so true. Like it's really hard to step out of your bubble when you're in another country, especially if you're not as great with the language as you want to be, like myself. But it's really worth it because you get to meet all types of different people and hear their perspectives, and not always just people of that country. Like I said, you can meet other internationals as well, but make sure that you do try to meet people of the country and try to make friends because it's why you're there. And that's part of why. Obviously, you might have other reasons, but
so let's say if I am approaching you. So what topics or what things that I should start here, like in America, what are the common topics that people talking about?
Okay, yeah, a lot of people in the U.S. like small talk, which since I've done traveling, I don't like small talk as much anymore. But to start a conversation, people often talk about the weather or about like work or about like family, pets, and in order to get past that initial barrier, you have to have like had a couple interactions with that person, I think.
I see.
And like really just ask like, oh, what are you doing for fun? Like, what's your passion project? Or like, what did you do this weekend? Or like, I'm going to this festival. I know we have this common interest because we talked about it before. Like, do you want to do this with me? So like something like that in order to become closer to the person.
I see. And then the next question is, what do you think about people with foreign accent?
I definitely am like pretty patient with them. Like I think I was patient before, but I understand more now because I was the same way with Japanese, like not very fluent, very halting, and my pronunciation was sometimes not so good.
So like for you, you are open to foreigners with accent, right?
Yeah, I think I always have been because I had a lot of experience with international students, even in my high school.
And how about Americans in general? What do you think about their opinion with people with accent?
Um, it really depends on where you go.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of city people are way more open because
Mm.
there's more foreigners in the cities.
Mm-hmm.
But in rural areas, it can be harder because a lot of it is people who've been there for generations,
Mm.
more, European descent, so more white Americans,
Mm-hmm.
um, and even other American ethnic groups can seem strange to some of those more isolated communities.
I see.
So
Yeah.
it might be hard for them to understand exactly like why people would come to
Mhm.
the U.S. if they're not the best with English or like if they're not speaking like a native.
Mhm.
But overall, like there are still a lot of people who accept it. It's
Mhm.
just there's also a lot of areas where they just don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like this is a personal question. What do you think about my English in general?
Your English?
Yeah, mine.
I think your English is pretty good. Like you're still learning and growing, but like honestly, when it's not your native language, you learn and grow like with it. And even with my English, like I learn some new stuff still sometimes.
Do you
So
understand me like 100% of the time? Or?
I think I probably understand you like 98% of the time.
Oh,
So
very
yeah,
good. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you very much.
yeah,
Okay, so this is could be the last question.
yeah.
What do you think about Asian men in general?
Asian men.
Yeah.
So I think there's a very big divide in Asia
Mm.
between men and women
Mhm.
because there's a very big expectation that if men are hanging out with women, it's for romantic reasons.
Mhm.
And as an American, especially as an American with a lot of friends of all genders,
Mhm.
I don't really care so much about the gender. Obviously, I see it, but I don't care about it as much as the person themselves.
Okay.
And so Asian men have a different perspective on that, and a lot of times when I'd ask some of my coworkers, male coworkers especially, to hang out, they would not want to do that, partly because of the divide.
I see.
And at work, my bosses would not joke with me as much as they joked with my coworker who was male. And I was told later on that was because they didn't want to be seen as, doing something inappropriate, which I was very surprised by because that doesn't seem inappropriate at all to me to just talk and have a conversation and joke around with someone.
Yeah, there are some differences.
Yeah.
Like expectation and culture. So for sure. And then, if an Asian man wants to have a date with you, so what do you think she should do to impress you, to make you like say yes?
Well, if he asked me, first of all, I'm not single, so.
Okay, more difficult.
But,
Yeah, hear it.
Yeah.
Take it.
But if I was single, something that he'd have to do to impress me is just get to know me first. Like, I'd rather. I'm the type of person that I haven't really dated much, even though I'm in a relationship, but we were friends before. So it'd have to be something like that.
Okay. Like understanding is the basics.
Yeah, understanding and knowing each other first.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Joey, thank you very much for your time. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, goodbye, guys.
Bye.